Hello, and obviously welcome everyone to another excellent edition of Movies and Tea. Here continuing our David Fincher season with The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, a film which was the first time watched myself. Don't know about yourself, Kim, was this first time watch as well?
Yes.
And probably the most un-Fincher-like film that he has currently directed to date. Here the film based on a short story by Fitzgerald, has really been sort of been knocked around since around about the mid-80s when producer Ray Stark bought the film rights, and it was optioned by Universal Pictures. And originally it was going to be Frank Oz who was going to direct, with Martin Short attached to the title role. But at the same time, Oz couldn't figure out a way to make the story work. Flash forward to 91, and Spielberg decides he's going to take a crack at it, this time with Tom Cruise attached for the lead role, but again Spielberg decides that the project's not for him and decides to go off and direct Jurassic Park and Schindler's List. And the rest is pretty much history as far as Spielberg's directing choice is concerned. But it's from there, it continues to be sort of passed around and goes from producer to producer, with Kathleen Kennedy and Frank Marshall picking up the rights and taking it over to Paramount Pictures. Eventually the film lands in front of Ron Howard, who decides that he would like to direct it, with John Travolta most bizarrely in the lead. Ultimately the plot, it comes to nothing, and then it really around 2000 it lands in the lap of another of Fincher's sort of class of music directors who went on to become feature directors, as Spike Jonze picks up the project, teaming up with Charlie Kaufman to write a readaptation of the screenplay. But ultimately, again, this comes to nothing, leaving it to screenwriter Eric Roth to pick up the project in 2004, bringing on board David Fincher to direct this rather unusual tale of a man aging backwards, as Brad Pitt stars as the title of Benjamin Button, who is born an old man and over the course of the film ages backwards, as we follow his life and adventures, and in particular the romance he has with Cate Blanchett's dancer Daisy Fuller. But I mean, Kim, obviously we've said off air that this is really a very Fincher-like film. I mean, for a start, it's not dark as the devil's spit. Everything's shot in brilliant daylight, and there's very use of any sort of camera sort of trickery or anything like that. The main sort of trickery we have here is just in the special effects, really, in making us believe that Brad Pitt is in fact aging backwards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are some staples of, obviously, Fincher in this with, the use of colors, blue tints, yellow tints, whatever. But, I mean, in general, you kind of associate Fincher with kind of the darker, kind of thriller, mystery, horror, whatever, that sort of thing, right? Something a little bit more, I guess, darker in content, but then at the same time, I guess there is a little bit of, I just don't know where the story is. Like, should you interpret The Curious Case of Benjamin Button as a dark story, or as just something a little bit more, it's just a story about life, like gaining the experiences of life as you get younger. You actually kind of know more about like being able to, I guess, appreciate things a little bit more when you're in your teens, which is kind of like how we say now, it's you, when you were younger, you wish you had more knowledge type of thing. And he's kind of aging backwards. So as he's younger, he actually knows more. So I don't know. I mean, the story itself, I think, has, in terms of kind of like this philosophical look of life and kind of giving you the message of life experiences and appreciating your moments and taking your opportunities and that sort of thing. It has a lot of that injected in it, as with any of these stories about age, whether age stands still or aging backwards or aging forwards or whatever. It's all kind of like that, and it's it's nice that the story is set up in the sense that I've never read the source material. I've really only ever read one Fitzgerald novel ever, and that's The Great Gatsby. So I haven't read this before, so I don't know what the source material actually is. If it's supposed to be a, essentially this like pretty much Benjamin Button's diary where you read and then you get all this information. I don't know the backstory, and I didn't look it up, considering I did spend, we spent 3 hours watching this movie already. I ran out of time to do more research.
It's surprisingly long. It has to be said. You wouldn't think that this movie needed 3 hours to tell this Forrest Gump-esque tale of this man who, as I said, we start in 1918.
Yeah.
With this story, and with Benjamin basically being dumped on the doorstep of a retirement home by his father after his mother dies in childbirth, and what we assume is that his father's so horrified at seeing this wrinkly old baby being born that he decides that the best thing to do is to abandon his child. And really what follows is just seeing Benjamin over the following years as he ends up turning up in a number of key historical events, and obviously engaging in this sort of romance that sort of carries him through the ages with this dancer called Daisy. So, I mean, it's hard to say whether this is supposed to be like, a slice of life story or a romantic picture. It's really hard to say, but for a budget of 167 million, it recouped 335.8 million, so certainly did well, even if people, I'm not sure what the sort of draw was. Was it the fact that we got to see Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett smoldering? And
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that that the cast themselves is really, really, really great. I have no issues with that. I think that, obviously as we go along the movie, we start seeing a lot of roles come in with some really nice, especially, people who have really come into a lot of fame in the recent years. Obviously back in 2008, they weren't probably as famous. But I mean, it's all very solid acting. I mean, at this point, it feels that whenever Brad Pitt is attached to a Fincher project, then it seems like it's going to be a fun time. I think that's probably where the traction is, especially since, he's already gone through 3 movies at this point with Fincher. 2 movies, right? And then this is their 3rd time working together, and they've had hits, obviously, with, Seven and then Fight Club, and at this point, it's a different Fincher that we're seeing. And maybe that's also quite intriguing, because we always like to see directors kind of maybe step out of their comfort zone and see what their vision of it can change how this type of story can be told.
Yeah, and it also feels, it's strange that obviously Fincher previously had done another period piece with Zodiac, and now here again he's choosing to do another period piece with this film, and it's really an opportunity for him not to just do the one period, obviously like the 1970s we saw with Zodiac, but to do many different periods. So it's kind of like, as from a directing perspective, getting to do this sort of sampler of getting to play around with different eras, different sort of set designs and costumes, and rather than having to like commit to one big project in any of these particular areas. And I know that Mark Romanek has said that's always been the appeal to him about directing music videos, is the fact that I can just play around with styles and ideas without having to treat this larger canvas. So I can do like a hand crank piece, I can do like a futuristic piece, and it's certainly for the appeal for this project would seem to be the same for Fincher. I mean, as we said already, the usual sort of traits are few and far between here. I think the main sort of challenge that he faces in terms of like the filmmaking is how do you convincingly have Brad Pitt play himself through these different stages of life rather than just having like different actors come in. Here we get to see Brad Pitt, go the full sort of gambit of ages as he goes from wrinkly old man to just increasingly more handsome versions of himself.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot to be said about Brad Pitt, and if there was a time to really show a deeper side of Brad Pitt, it definitely would be as Benjamin Button, because he goes through the entire course of life, and as even though he's aging backwards, and it's physicality that he's kind of aging backwards. You kind of see him growing as a person, knowing things, he's mentally growing as a person, but he's physically aging backwards, right? So it's a very confusing kind of thing to go through in your mind of how to interpret this story. And I think that Brad Pitt is definitely the highlight, because I don't know, maybe it's because I don't choose the right Brad Pitt movies or something, or I just don't watch enough Brad Pitt movies, although I feel like I do. But I feel like this role is maybe one of the deeper roles he's had. Obviously, when we watched him in Fight Club, he was also it was a different type of him, I think. Like, he was kind of this just over the top and just out of control type of character. Whereas in this one, he's more innocent. There's a lot more of that going on here. My only issue with, obviously watching it now, Brad Pitt, I mean, even in 2008, Brad Pitt was quite the, think and the male idol type of thing, right?
Yeah, I think post-7.
Like for Brad Pitt, he has this kind of like superstar thing. So acting in a movie where you need to kind of embrace his character as this Benjamin Button, I think the best way to do it would be in the beginning, where he's this old man, where he's almost unrecognizable as himself. So you kind of can take him for who he is.
Yeah. I think certainly when it comes to Brad Pitt's career, I think it was really after 7 that we all sort of paid notice to him more as an actor, because I think up until that he was suffering from the same issues that Leonardo DiCaprio have, where he's just like the pretty boy. And nobody's really sort of taking him serious. I mean, he's doing things like A River Runs Through It and Legends of the Fall and 7 Years in Tibet, so these real sort of arty sort of pictures, but at the same time he's just like, oh yeah, it's just the good looking guy. And I think Leonardo DiCaprio had that for a while around, like, when he was doing like Titanic and The Beach and stuff, and it took him a while to really sort of break away from that. I think it was only once he sort of like teamed up with Scorsese that people started really sort of taking him seriously as an actor, and he's doing things like Wolf of Wall Street and Shutter Island. And
it's also aging. They age with charm, and not like it's not with the boyish looks anymore. They've grown out of it. They've become men, So some people, some actors don't grow out of it. Like you see Jesse Eisenberg or what's his face? Other than who's this other person? Who's the other guy who's really similar to whatever? I mean, these people they age pretty much. Yeah, they pretty much age to they still look very youthful. Like Michael Cera still looks fairly youthful, I think. But I haven't seen him in a long time in anything, so I don't know. But I mean, like, these people, they age and they still look very boyish. Obviously, they're not as old as, obviously, Leonardo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt is right now. But I feel like the change is that I feel like it's more sophisticated now in those roles than they were before. They have a lot more charm to them, and it's different. I think they fit into the roles they are now given. They can't do boyish roles. You don't go backwards in time, as much as they don't age. They have this like anti-aging thing going on for them, but it's still like they just mature with the roles. And I feel like, much like Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt also has found some really nice roles as he's getting older.
Yeah, I think as he's obviously gotten older and been able to sort of gain more sort of respect, and certainly with obviously the fact he's also a producer as well, I think certainly helps when you look at his production company Plan B. which has enabled him to certainly establish his more projects. And another person that I would say has to follow in this mode would be Ben Affleck, who it took forever for everyone. I think with Ben Affleck, the problem is he went from being like seen as the pretty boy actor, then just to being seen as box office poison, and then it was like finally we could see him as being a proper actor. So
is Ben Affleck a pretty boy actor? I don't think I ever felt that way about him.
Did you? Okay, so just a smaller group of us. Then at least he was more sort of plausible when he decided to become a proper actor, like Matt Damon. Mm-hmm. Matt Damon always just feels like he's trying to make up for Team America burning himself so badly. But yeah, I mean, with this film, I think it is a chance for Brad Pitt to do something more dramatic, really. And even though he's essentially just playing the same sort of character, you do get the essence of this character having shifts in personality, as you said, through life experience and whatnot as it goes on. The only issue, however, with Brad Pitt playing himself all the way through is when we get scenes such as when he meets Daisy for the first time. Now, in the film, while they're obviously the same age, they're both supposed to be 7, he looks just like a small old man, and very much like Brad Pitt in old man makeup. And he's leching over this 7-year-old girl, and it's like, wow, is that creepy?
But I think it's meant to be that way because he doesn't know better. In his mind, he's 7.
Yes, I
7. They don't have that, right? But that's why we have that scene where, obviously when the grandma comes on, he's like, shame on you on doing this. How can like it feels like he's doing something wrong, but in reality, it wasn't even him who initiated it. It was really, he just followed along because he didn't know better. He's never known anything outside of this senior home residence.
I know. Always a feisty redhead leading you astray. Know that too well. But at the same time, I mean, then you have alternate sort of sequences where this mistaken sort of age for him works really well, such as when he's goes off to work on the tugboat, and his captain thinks he's just this old man who's never known the touch of a woman, so takes him off to the whorehouse. Which obviously provides a startling surprise for the lady that he ends up losing his virginity with, in probably one of the more amusing sequences of maintain that humorous tone, because it felt like the film was certainly missing something, because once it gets into the sort of grown-up years of his life, so for this film I would say we're looking at the era sort of around the 1945, so he reunites with Daisy. Daisy's obviously now an actor, and he's returning from the war. And it just becomes too focused on, we've got to have this like sweeping romance, and we got to have these two good-looking actors be sort of like this charming couple together. And the problem I found though is that both Cate Blanchett and Brad Pitt may be good actors, they really don't have much chemistry together, which is really kind of an issue when you're now resting about 2.5 hours of film on these two selling their chemistry together.
Yeah, I mean, they're really great. They're really great actors, an actor and actress separately, right? But I feel together, I do agree with you. Their chemistry leaves a little bit to be desired. It's mostly, I just feel it very awkward because it's mostly the Daisy character, which feels like she's very volatile, would be the word, I think.
Yeah.
Because she's like, obviously when she's younger, she has she just thinks he's this old man, but she's the only person that really knows his secret other than the mom. And then as, they're going along, she starts seeing him get younger and younger, and he starts really, and he starts really embracing it. So what happens after that is really the fact that, like, how do you say it? I mean, it's just whenever they see each other, she starts like, tossing herself at him and trying to this random seductive scene in the park, and it's just like, where is this person coming? Is she trying to act like she's older than she is to impress this man that she thinks is older in a certain age? And then there seems to be like this whole journey between them, but then they all make it up at the end where they're like, oh well, I wouldn't have wanted my whatever 20 something age to be with you because I wouldn't be, it wouldn't be the same. I wouldn't be experiencing it now, type of thing. It's a lot of going through the motions, I think. Like, a lot of the Daisy parts, I would have, like, fast-forwarded it and then cut it out, like...
Oh, yeah.
Just chop it up a ton and then be putting it together, and I wouldn't feel... That's the problem, is I think when a movie is, like, you feel like it's so long and there are so many... It wouldn't make a difference whether I had seen more scenes of them or less. And when it's a romance and you're trying to sell this romance and you're at this point, it's very hard to get into. Obviously, they have some really sweet moments, and I actually felt more engaged in the Tilda Swinton portion than I was than the Cate Blanchett one, because Tilda Swinton's one was very fun to watch. It was quick. It was very fast-paced. It was just like, it was really a slice of his life. It's like a section of his life that he was in Russia, and they found company in each other. And he fell in love, and you could feel that kind of passion and that kind of, I don't know, difference in what it was. But maybe it had to do with the fact that when he was in Russia, he was maybe nearing that teenager age kind of deal. I get lost in this timeline of this story. I forget where I am sometimes, and then unless they cue up how old they are, I sometimes forget what it is.
So I mean, there was in 41, it's supposed to be that he begins this affair. So I would say it's him as a teenager, or a dashing silver fox, as the film portrays him as.
Oh no. Okay, so he was... Okay, I just looked at my notes again. So he was 17. He was 17 when he left for Russia, which means he was in kind of like his prime. So he was probably more, passionate, more energetic, more whatever. So you could really feel that. So by the time he actually gets it on with Daisy, it's already like 10 years later. So he's in his late 20s or so.
Yeah, but... Again, this is the problem when you got a character who's supposed to be playing younger than the character we're seeing. And so when we have the scenes of him and Tilda Swinton, it doesn't really come off that he's like a 17-year-old. And I think that the real strength of the scene just lies in the interaction they have, rather than him trying to play his age. Just the conversations, the fact that she's more worldly than he is, so she's teaching about vodka and caviar and these sort of finer aspects of life, and the fact that they're having these secret midnight meetings in the hotel that obviously then blossoms into a more believable romance than the one we're supposed to be buying in this film. But then again, I think this is the thing with Tilda Swinton. You have Tilda Swinton and she can make anything work, it seems. I mean, she could have chemistry with the Drapes if she needed to.
Tilda Swinton is a fantastically
she's just an enigma,
actress,
isn't she? She
honestly,
just turns up and just embodies whatever they need her to be. It's sort of like, it's like recently I've just like seen her in like 4 different like roles. It was sort of like I saw her playing Twins in Okja, I then saw her play the minister in Snowpiercer, and it's sort of like, oh, you're now like this Thatcher-esque Yorkshire accented woman in this sci-fi film, and it's sort of like every time I see it. And then you look at the remake of Suspiria, and she's there playing not only the dance mistress but the old man as well, and it's like, where did you come from? You'd like think she shouldn't be like in the phone book. She should belong. She's like she's like Bowie. She's this outer world presence who's just coming to visit us, and then she's going to disappear one day.
That part was really, really... I think that was where I was really excited. it was very entertaining to watch. It was very quick paced. I think once you get into the after war part, things get slower than they were. Things get a lot more dramatic, and I feel like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like the script itself got lost. Like, they got confused with their storyboard of what aging backwards means. And then it's like what you said, when he's with Tilda Swinton's character, which is she's called Elizabeth Abbott. You have this feeling that he's very intrigued by everything that she's seen, because obviously he hasn't seen a lot. He was in New York. Whether he was in New York, he was in New Orleans, and then he hops onto a tugboat and he ends up in Russia. You know, so his worldly views are, you know, he's seen a bit from his tugboat, and then he's in Russia for X amount of time doing whatever, and then now he hears about all these places that this woman has gone to, and she seems, you know, she's not supposed to be pretty, she's not like all these things, but somehow he's attracted to her because of the things that she knows, and because of just all these talks they're having. And it's kind of weird, because it's hard to say that, you know, a 17-year-old is not more, I guess. Maybe it's the fact, I don't know what they're trying to get at sometimes. I wonder if it's because he grew up in an old person's home. That's why his mindset is matured a lot faster. But then the only thing that he retains from this is the fact that he's very curious about the world.
Definitely, I think with her character, it's more to instill that world, that lust to explore the world. Where obviously, when we look at Daisy, her whole drive is just with dance. Meaning that she doesn't given a huge much to do, and the problem is that we have this character who just wants to travel and sail on his boat, and that means we get really tedious scenes such as like Benjamin and Daisy go sailing for like a year, and just so he can work in the space shuttle launch, and it's like, do we need to cover every year just to get up to present day so we can find out what happened to the relationship between him and old lady Daisy that is supposed to be narrating the story and has somehow developed a southern accent in the intervening years for whatever reason. So I had to say though that it's the worst story, like the structure to have it in, to have Benjamin's diary being recounted by this old southern lady. And it's like the worst like old lady makeup that they got Kate Blanchett in as well, so it just feels really bad for her as well. So
I don't feel the real life parallel is too bad. I just feel like sometimes the parallels they're trying to draw from the story to here to the reality, like to the present day, is very distant, I guess. It's not easy to connect the two together. And the main point of it was for the big twist of who Benjamin Button is to these two people, you know, and who these people are. And it's not exactly unpredictable. You know at a certain point what's going on, even though the daughter of this old lady seems very questioning on this whole thing. I don't know how you say it. But I mean, it's not exactly like unpredictable. I'm pretty sure like even you saw it, you know, you saw it, what was gonna be happening at this point, the moment that we knew the lady that was lying in bed.
I think that was pretty
Daisy,
obvious,
right?
From the first time that Daisy's sort of introduced, and it's built up that it's gonna be like this big love romance for the ages and stuff. But you know, the one thing I did appreciate is that I feel like Daisy, this is the first time that Daisy has opened this diary. And this diary is meant for his daughter. And what happens here is she's hearing a lot of these things being read to her for the first time. And because we're hearing both sides of the story, obviously we're watching most of this movie in through the eyes of Benjamin Button, because this is being told from his diary. And these parts of reality brings in Daisy's side of the story. And in some cases, it really helps to complete the picture. I still think
A lot of it could be cut out because it was really long.
Just a bit.
But some parts, but some of the parts did help complete the picture. And it really helps because it kind of gives this old lady Daisy, as she's passing away, I guess some closure on some of the issues she had, because it feels like maybe she's had some regrets about not grasping these opportunities more, or pushing him away at a certain time, or all these things that kind of cut their relationship short and didn't start their relationship earlier, kind of thing. Because that's where the romance comes in. I think most of the feels are really at the end. I started really feeling more connected. I like the ending a lot because I was very touched by how like the whole story ended. And I mean, and it has to do with the fact that, you know, whoever, you know, Benjamin Button is like a book of quotes, his diary. So a book about life quotes, about grabbing your chances, and opportunities are, you know, even when they're missed, are great, and people who, you know, all these things. It's interesting how, you know, I just wonder who in this world talks like a book of quotes.
I just hate it when you have these movies that are supposed to be covering huge spans of time, and that they just happen to hit all these major, like, important life things, and it just, like, got so eye-rolly by the end. Like, once we get into, like, the 60s, and suddenly it's like, oh, it's the Beatles on the Ed Harrison show, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake. I just, like, really? And the fact that they live in this perfect apartment, and they, like, furnish it out, but they don't ever bother to buy a bed. They just sleep on this mattress, and they do everything on this mattress that they've put on the floor, and it's like, really? I mean, I've lived in some crappy apartments.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of questions. It has a lot of movie magic to it. And a lot of it has to do, I think, with probably the fact that I've always felt that Fitzgerald, like, even with The Great Gatsby, has this kind of weird perception of life and the rich and money and all that sort of things, and their characters sometimes. I don't know. But, I mean, it's kind of funky because you're watching them and it's not like they're doing much. And then all of a sudden she has money to open a school of dance, and you're like, wait, what were you guys doing? Where is this coming from? And then you forget that, you know, Benjamin Button does own the Buttons or something, whatever the place is called.
Inhabited it.
And then he's actually has a lot of money, so you forget about all these things until, you know, because I mean, honestly, there's a lot going on, and like there's a lot that's happening, a lot of details, and a lot of people that cross their lives, and that sort of thing. And I mean, I keep going back to the end because I really want to talk about the end more than I want to talk about the beginning. And like the end is nice. I just want to finish that thought. The end is nice because we finally get to look back at all these characters that kind of cross his path, and he kind of gives a regard to everybody. And I'm not kidding you. I really like that guy. I really wanted to get through the man who was talking about getting hit by lightning 7 times. I found that incredibly entertaining.
Especially they do these cutaways, and it's like this old-timey footage
of
this guy getting like struck by lightning as he goes to the mailbox, just like walking down the road. Yeah, that was definitely good. I think the supporting characters in the film are really fantastic, and I think that's when the film actually becomes interesting, when we're not talking about Benjamin and Daisy.
Yeah, because I think the key in this is life, right? In your life, you meet people. You meet a lot of people who bring you a lot of different perspectives. And every single person he meets, well, almost everyone, is very fun to watch. They have their own story. They have their own, you know, quirks. And sometimes it's more short. Their stories are shorter. Maybe they're just passing by. But everybody has these little moments. Even like, I mean, I love Taraji P. Henson as an actor. So when I saw she was playing Mom, I was just so happy because she's an amazing actress. And I mean, obviously now she's getting a lot more fame, especially after she did that
Hidden Figures. Yeah, your favorite film
Hidden
last decade.
Figures. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was great to obviously see her in some of her previous roles also. So yeah, there's a lot to love about this. Like a lot of actors now, like I said, a lot of the supporting actors we see, but we don't acknowledge as much, I guess.
Definitely so. I mean, you got Alexis Cotas, who plays Monsieur Gâteau, or Mr. Cake.
Yeah.
Blind clockmaker in a really fantastic opening sequence, which I really thought was just really good.
Yes.
In particular, Ed Metzger as Theodore Roosevelt, I think added a lot of emotional weight to that sequence. At the same time, we also get to see Jared Harris as the tugboat captain, Mike. You mentioned already about Queenie, who I think I would have liked to have seen her more. Just the fact that she's there. She's this black woman who's running an old people's home, and I wasn't sure what the setup was supposed to be of what it was, because I thought originally she was like a servant in this rich person's house, and that all these other people were there for a gathering, and then I realized they weren't going anywhere, and I realized, oh no, it's an old people home, which is obviously the perfect place to put Benjamin, because they assume he's an old man, just really small. I think this is where the film could have done better. I mean, it could have had more interactions with other interesting people. I think the one scene with Daisy that really sort of was interesting is the section on fate that leads to her having her leg crushed in a car accident, and that for myself is probably one of my favorite moments of the whole film. I think it's also where Fincher gets to shine the most in his sort of precision style. In the fact that we have this chain of characters, and it's basically like if one thing had changed in this chain, perhaps Daisy wouldn't have been in the accident. And it's just interesting, you see where you go all the way back, and then you play it forward. What could have happened. I think it's whenever you have those moments of fate. It's always sort of interesting to see those hints of what could have been. So those bits were good, but yeah, as I said, when we're just padding out a romance for another hour, I mean, you could have hacked an hour off this thing and it wouldn't have lost anything. Especially because it's, as I said, it's like, oh, Benjamin goes wandering off. He walks out on his wife and kid. Well, obviously with pretty good reason, because with him aging backwards, he sees himself as being more of a hindrance than a father. But he just seems to go off and have this gay old time, going off on more ventures and hanging out in Tibet and whatnot. And she's there left raising the kid, and yet she takes him back with no qualms. He turns up 10 years later, and it's sort of they just pick up nothing happened. It's the darndest thing.
I don't know. I think that there's so much in there. There is meant to be a lot of depth in their relationship. Their relationship is not just as simple as it seems, because obviously there's this whole aging backwards thing that changes the context of their relationship in general, and something that's always something that's hanging on their head. And in the end, in reality, you know what? I mean, he wanted to leave to not be a hindrance to her, but in the end, he still ended up being taken care of by her as he got, obviously gets younger, and but he's getting dementia as a child, I guess, if you can call it that. So everything comes kind of full circle, and sometimes things that are meant to happen will happen, no matter how much you try to run away from it. And I think that the story's main lesson is really embodied in a lot of the ending section about what he says about life, about the people you meet, and that really encapsulates what this entire 2 hour and 40 so minutes movie is about. I don't hate it. I like movies that are like that. I liked it a lot more when I was younger. But I just felt, there's, we keep saying it. I feel like we're broken records, but there's just so much that could have been cut out of it, and it wouldn't have changed anything. Because, you have one favorite scene, and I have one, I have a few, really nice moments. But then, I mean, if you think about the fact, we were saying it would have been great if we had more of those humoristic kind of moments, but then that wouldn't be Fincher. This is supposed to be dramatic. This is supposed to be kind of dark. It's supposed to be this look on life, and there's a lot of things they say here that are fairly, depressing about life, like you don't know how to, people are meant to die, or else you don't know how to, appreciate them or something like that. And it's very sad about the things that, like just about missed opportunities and all those things that it goes. But in the end, it's kind of a little bit dark in a certain way, a little bit dramatic. And then as we hit the end, the final thing that he says to his daughter is very nice. It's about, telling him to have the strength to start over if she needs, and hoping that she has the best of everything, and whatever. And all those things are very heartwarming. I just feel the relationships there were built between Benjamin Button and the strangers in their short moments was much stronger than the ones that were meant to be longer. The only one that I really connected with was, him and Tilda Swinton, which was also a short encounter, and him and his mom, pretty much, for me at least.
Okay, so let's get into some further viewing now. If you happen to like A Curious Case of Benjamin Button, where'd you sort of go from here?
Okay, yeah, so for further viewing, I went with kind of mostly movies that targeted kind of your change in perspective over life, whether it was time freezing at a certain age or changing at a certain age. So, yeah. So, one of the obvious choices would, that is also a romance where it's about a woman whose time stops pretty much. Like she gets into a car accident and she stops aging, and that would be Age of Adeline, played by Blake Lively. Yeah, I haven't personally finished a movie, but the concept is very similar to this one. So maybe I'll go and watch it. I'll finish it now. And then if you talk about like revelation of life experiences, actually, Hong Kong had a movie that was with Andy Lau. It was in 2005, a little bit earlier than this one, which actually talks about a boy who wishes, Andy Lau pretty much plays this little boy who wants to grow up faster. And he ends up getting this, I don't remember if it's a bean or a pill or some type of medication or potion or something. And he takes it, this magic potion, and it transforms him into an adult. And he starts aging very fast, which is the opposite effect of, obviously, this movie. He actually ages exponentially fast. From a boy to an old man. And we watched the process of that. And that movie is only an hour and a half. Hey, you can do this quick. So that movie is actually really fun. It was one of the first movies that I watched that was really about aging in kind of like a fantastical way, I guess. And then other than that,
Sounds like Big.
I don't know if it's about the same thing, but I don't know.
Have you seen Big, the Tom Hanks movie?
I might have. I don't remember a lot of it. I watched it a long time ago, so I don't remember.
It's just, the same when you're describing it. It's just like, the boy has the makes the wish and suddenly ends up as Tom Hanks, and he's big. Yeah, no, this is. I feel like it's similar, but not quite the same. Okay. It's more dramatic in the Hong Kong sense. But yeah, other than that, I thought about as a darker picture of just a father-child relationship would be Big Fish, where you talk about their stories and that sort of thing, and Big Fish is a pretty good movie in my opinion, so it would be a decent. I watched it once and then tried to watch it again, but those southern accents just did me in. That and the fact is Ewan McGregor as well. I'm gonna say this right now. I watched Big Fish the first time and I did not like it. And then someone was like, okay, I think I had to watch it for something else. And I rewatched it and I actually liked it the second time. It might have to do with age. Maybe I understood a little bit more, so I had my own things that I was dealing with and it worked better the second time around. And the last title for further viewing is a Chinese movie that I saw at one of the festivals I went to 2 years ago.
and that would be Ash's purest white. And in many ways, this relationship doesn't have an age element, but it is very similar to the fact that we kind of relates more to the back half of the story, where a man kind of loses his he used to be kind of like this big crime boss type of thing, and this woman used to just be with him, and as things separated them apart, they end up finding each other again, but this time he's gone cripple from, just stuff happens. and she ends up taking care of him, and there's this whole story about that kind of relationship, and I feel like in some ways it kind of connects to this one a little bit further, far-fetched, but it's there. I actually thought about it as we were talking about it, so yeah. Any other further viewing from you?
Well, I mean, obviously Big Fish was one that jumped out to myself. You can also go down the obvious route of doing Forrest Gump, which is more problematic the more you think about the story. I mean, obviously here we have a man who's dim-witted, but somehow manages to play a role in numerous important historical events and finds, success and fame. And it's a charming little story, but unfortunately when you start looking at the deeper themes of the fact that, here Forrest plays by the rules and does the right thing and is rewarded constantly, and then his girlfriend Daisy constantly rebels against things and is punished and then ends up dying. It kind of overshadows it a bit. The other film I want to throw out there would be Brokeback Mountain. I think it's another romance over a passage of time. I mean, obviously it's not to the same extreme as this, but I feel that tonally it was very different. I'm not sure, but I'm still going back and forth where I would watch Brokeback Mountain again instead of this, but I think Brokeback Mountain was a little more engaging than this film was.
Yeah, I would agree with that, yes.
Even though it's slow as all hell and hardly the most cheery viewing at times. The last one I would include, and this is just romance with a unique concept, and that would be The Time Traveler's Wife, where Eric Bana, everyone's third favourite Hulk, everyone's fourth favourite Hulk, suffers from a condition which makes him constantly travel through time at random moments, and the romance he embarks on with this woman who obviously has to live with the fact that her partner just constantly can phase in and out of time at any given moment. It's okay. It's another outlandish concept like this one. So I think if you were looking for thought that your romance films are too straight-laced and wanted something with a bit of a twist to it, I think this, or I think Big Fish, should certainly suit you well. So
yeah.
But that was A Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Not one I'm in a rush to revisit. But Kim, where are we heading to next?
We are jumping forward to 2010, and we're checking out the biopic, The Social Network, which also happens to be your number one of the last decade.
That's right. The Social Network, the story of Facebook and the rise of Mark Zuckerberg, a concept that really should have been a TV movie, yet in Fincher's hands turns into something very special. We will obviously be looking at that on our next episode, but until then, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons where you happen to listen to us. Maybe leave us a review. It all helps raise the profile of the show. You can follow us both on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and we love to hear from you guys, so let us know what you think of the show or any of the directors that we've covered. And you can also check out our full archive, which is moviesandteapodcast.wordpress.com, and on there we also have our Friday Film Club, where each Friday myself and Kim both pick a film to put together into a really fun double feature. Sometimes there's a theme, sometimes there's not, but either way there's some fun suggestions either way. But that's it for this episode. Thank you as always to my co-host Kim, and we'll be back next time to talk about The Social Network. Good night.